Hi, Heather.
Hi there.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's a good day.
Good,
It's spring.
good.
I love
I
spring.
know, it's gorgeous. It's really warm where I am right now, as you can tell by my bare shoulders.
Uh-huh.
Um, so we have another webinar coming up at the end of May, May 29th, in our Leadership for Liminal Spaces program. We also have our Know Yourself program coming up.
Great.
And we talked the gamut of things already this morning, but
Yeah.
I was curious because one of the things we've sort of been back and forth about is the idea of self-reflection, because it's the big piece, obviously, of our Know Yourself course. And webinar 5 is dealing with the psychology of leadership. So obviously, that's going to be a big part of it there as well. But I guess my question is, to be utterly selfish here, what if I don't want to self-reflect, Heather? Because I don't want to see this stuff about myself that could make me wrong or make me appear weak or
Yeah. Yeah.
reveal to me that I have been believing wrong things for a long time. It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the importance of self-reflection and why that discomfort is worth it.
Yeah. I think this is such a critical question because on the one hand, some of us, myself included, become almost overthinkers in the
Mm,
self-reflection, and we become navel gazers where we're always, second guessing ourselves or overthinking and et
yeah,
cetera, et cetera. So I recognize that there's a shadow side to this, I think too, n- yeah, when I talk about self-reflection, I really want us to talk about the valuable stuff in it and not so much the second guessing, the
right,
self-deprecation even or whatever. That can masquerade as self-reflection, but I think that's almost a I don't know, there's some pride in that. I need to be right or I need to figure this out so that I can be worthy, etc. It's a worthiness
right,
quest.
yeah,
But what I'm talking about, or what we're talking about in our programs in self-reflection, is a really deep and honest way of looking at yourself and learning about yourself so that you can live more wisely. And that's why we've called Know Yourself, we've renamed it recently to Know Yourself Self-Reflection for Wise Living, because I think self-reflection allows us, it gives us access to deeper wisdom, it gives us access um, it allows us to be in places of more ambiguity, a bit of more discomfort because we know ourselves, we know our capacity for ambiguous spaces, we know our capacity for discomfort, for all of that because we've done that reflection work. And for me, it's recognizing the opposite too. I always look at what's the harm of
you're right.
not being self-reflective. And I'll never forget, and you and I have talked about this, but back when Trump was first elected the first time in 2016, I'd heard this interview with Bruce Springsteen. It was just a simple sentence that landed for me, and I've hung on to it ever since because he said something about how one of the greatest flaws in Trump was his complete he was completely incapable of self-reflection or incapable or unwilling. And I thought that's exactly it. Those that are in this quest for power, for money, for influence, who are very ego driven, um, they are not taking the time to be honestly self-reflective. And that's where a lot of the harm comes in our systems. Abusive people, they're not going to be self-reflective. If people are in relationships with abusive people, you can't get them to look at themselves, to be honest about themselves, because that would cause too much cognitive dissonance and pain in them. Because if I have to see that I'm actually a bad person, that's gonna disrupt my sense of myself, throw me into a really uncomfortable place. And so self-reflection is a willingness to be uncomfortable. It's a willingness to see, oh, I sometimes have this negative impact on people. I may need to work on that. I may need to change how I'm in relationship with people. So self-reflection is important for our relationships. It's important for our community building. It's important for our engagement with the world in general, with like I'm really learning, and I talk a lot about this, but my self-reflection in terms of who am I in the ecosystems that I'm part of, even in nature, and how do I see myself as a person who can who engages with that on a healthy level, that's not a person who's dominating or controlling or those things, but I'm participating in. So I've just sort of rambled on a lot of fronts, but for me, that's all of those things are why self-reflection, when we talk about grounded guides, which we're
Mm,
developing that concept in our leadership for liminal spaces, it's a place where you have to do that honest self-reflection so that you can engage with people better. You can be in a more humble relationship with other people, with yourself, with what's difficult in the world. But
mm.
yeah, feel free to riff off whichever of those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, you sort of encapsulated really well a lot of the stuff we had been talking about before we hit record. Um, yeah, I was thinking about the grounded guide thing and how necessary self-reflection is to build those roots, because if you can never be wrong, and if your ego has to be protected all the time,
Mm.
then it is so easy for, if we're going to use the tree analogy, for your tree to just blow over in any gust of wind, right?
Yeah.
um with any opposition, with any, you know counter facts to what you have been believing up till now. Whereas if you have the capacity for self-reflection, then your roots go deeper and you can be sturdier and you can
Mhm.
weather those winds, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah.
um what it also brings up for me, because I mean, this is the thing we sort of joked about since we started the Know Yourself program, was how it's our it's our least self-helpy program with the most self-helpy name.
I know.
So
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about how deep, wise self-reflection is different from a
Yeah.
self-help
Yeah.
10-step plan. Unpack
Yeah.
that a little bit.
I think that's really important. And it's a little bit hard to unpack exactly what the difference is
Yeah.
until you do it, because I think there's a real draw to self-help books, self-help. And I've bought them in the past too, and I read them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not averse to them. But a lot of the self-help work stops too soon. Like it stops in the fix yourself and be a better person. But it doesn't, and one of the models that I use a lot is the model of the labyrinth, the walking a
Mm-hmm.
labyrinth. And self-reflection is a little bit like a labyrinth where you're going internal. And there are three steps to the labyrinth. There's the release when you're going in, and then at the center, there's the receive where you're getting the wisdom, and then there's the return where you're coming back out. And a little like the hero's journey, where you're bringing whatever you received at the center back to your community. And I think so many self-help um, teachings stop at the receive place, where let's
Right.
get to where we're better people, where we have more like joy and comfort, blah, blah, blah. But they don't take you on that return journey to how do I engage this with my community? How does this make me better able to be in relationship, in places where we have to wrestle with hard things, in places where we have to address the way that our systems are causing harm in the world, the way that there's oppression that exists, the way that there's tyranny and climate change and all these big problems. We can't stay at the center of the labyrinth. We can't stay in that place of just having better, nicer, happier lives with our lovely bubble baths and candles, and
Mm-hmm.
not to
Yeah.
simplify it to that, but we have to bring it, our self-reflection practice has to become an active way of engaging with the world around us, or nothing will change. Like if we stay here, we're not going to disrupt systems. We're not going to notice that our neighbors have access to less within the system, less rights, less whatever, less programs within the system, if we're staying here in our self-help kind of model. And so what we want to do, and what we always do with programs like Know Yourself, is go inward, discover things about yourself, discover how that self interacts with the bigger world, how one affects the other and vice versa, so that you can participate in, call it gritty community that gets the
Mm,
boots on the ground
hmm.
kind of engagement in the world and in practices and conversations that matter, that help us shift our reality towards more justice, more community, more yeah. But
Hmm.
it's that messiness that we have to be willing to go into.
Totally. And I would add, because it's sort of my lane, that we go into the labyrinth as communities as well. Like
Right.
you're not doing it. I don't know. I think we talk a lot about the myth of individualism, shall we call it, and how somehow if you pull up your bootstraps, everything is
Yeah.
going to be okay. But the truth is that it requires multiple people, and there are going to be parts of that labyrinth that you cannot walk on your own, that
Yeah.
you will need help with, whether
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
a psychologist, whether it's a small group of friends. There are going to be spots where you will not be able to move on your own. And I
Yeah.
think that's sort of important to acknowledge too. And that, I think, also helps equip you for the outward journey again too, because you're already accustomed to being vulnerable with other people, even
Yeah.
on the return journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it allows, I think, for more gritty community and for more good friction in community. Because yeah, good friction is what gets the wheels moving,
Yeah.
and not just anesthesia of niceness.
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, so much of our even self-help books,
Yeah,
etc., are really rooted in an individualistic culture.
100%.
And that surfaced last time we did a webinar for our program, we were talking about systems thinking, and
Yes.
I was exploring some of the concepts of self. And most of what I was finding in the literature on our individual selves was rooted in Western psychology with white men at the helm of writing it. And so it was very much from this kind of colonialist, individualist, supremacist kind of
Myopic.
place.
Yeah.
And not that their wisdom is not valuable, but it does not see us as collective beings
Right.
necessarily, does not see the complexity of we each have selves that are interconnected, and we're meant to be that interconnected, be in relationship. And that's part of who I am is because of you and because I'm in
Hmm.
relationship with you. Like I
Yeah.
can't entirely separate myself from the people I'm in relationship with. And so
Yeah.
and that's part of the reason we renamed our program. It used to be Know Yourself, Free Yourself, because it felt a
Yeah.
little too, it's like about freeing yourself, and it's like, oh no, this
Yes.
is actually more about freeing the collective and being in the
Yeah.
collective. And so we haven't named it necessarily perfectly yet, but we were trying to find something that was
One
about
day we'll
that.
find the right name for
Yeah,
it.
because that's what we want to wrestle with. Like we want to invite people into self-reflection in a way that sees them um, intertwined with other
Yeah.
people in a collective kind of understanding. And it's both and. It's I mean, we're creating a bit of
Yes.
a tension point of
Yes.
know yourself and know your relationships, and don't try to separate these two, but see the interlocking or interwoven
Hmm.
systemic piece around who we are, based on, yeah, who
Yeah.
who we're in relationship with.
Totally. An author you and I have both recently become big fans of, Tyson Yonkaporta, uses the phrase "us two"
Yes,
in
I
a
love
lot of
that.
his writing, which I think encapsulates a bit what we're just talking about. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so I hope you will join us two in
yeah.
in our Know Yourself program, which is happening over 4 weeks in June. We're trying something new. We're gonna shorten the time frame and have a little bit longer sessions. So we're experimenting a little bit with the format of that, but I think it's
Yeah.
going to be really great. And also our next webinar on May 29th, which is a Thursday, same bat time, same bat place as we've had all the other ones, um, on the psychology of leadership, exploring beliefs, biases, and identity. So we hope you will join us for one or both or all of those offerings. We're really looking forward to being in the what did I call it earlier?
The
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 complicated
ambiguous
center?
center, holding the ambiguous
Yeah.
center, I think was the language you used. Yeah.
Come join us in the ambiguous center,
Yeah,
where we offer more questions than answers, but lots of great conversation.
exactly.
Anything else before we sign off?
No, just that I think that part of what we're talking about is that all of this learning happens in community. So we gain
Mhm.
our wisdom in our conversations, in our relationships. And so yeah, we look forward to having people in those conversations with us.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you there.